Welcome to another episode of Dr. Brooke on the Block. It's time to grab a seat, buckle up, and take a ride with me through the wild, wild west of the Web3 universe, where we're going to learn all about coins and tokens, NFTs and contracts, digital real estate and the metaverse, and so much more. There is a lot to get through on the block, but I am here to pave the way and help you avoid those nasty pitfalls and rug pulls so you don't get hurt. I'm going to also introduce you to some interesting characters along the way. Are you ready? Your ride starts now. Hey, Dr. Brooke here with another epic ride through the wild, wild west. And today I am joined by my co-pilot, Kyle Tut, who is the co-founder and CEO of Pinata, the #1 platform for NFT Media Management. And we're going to get into that more today. But in 2018, him and his co-founder, Matt, launched Pinata at the Hackathon East Berlin and won. So super congrats on that. And not only did they win, but now they serve over 240,000 users worldwide and have more than 120 million files pinned on IPFS, which stands for Interplanetary File System. Kyle's going to give us a brief overview of what that means and what that technology is. He's based out of Omaha, Nebraska, and he loves F1, which I do too. So maybe the first question is, what's your favorite F1 team?
So my favorite F1 team is actually McLaren. So I've been an F1 fan for a very long time,
Yes.
going back to like 2000. So
Okay.
not to be one of those guys that's like the people that came in from Netflix aren't fans, but
No, they are fans, but definitely because I came in at like 2005, so I know the feeling of where you're at right now.
Yep. Yeah, and so I didn't like Ferrari back then because Michael Schumacher was the equivalent of what Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton is today. And when Lewis came into the sport in 2007, I just was absolutely enamored with him and in the history of McLaren, and so have always been big fans of them. And then obviously my driver is Lewis Hamilton, though now it seems kind of like a bandwagon pick, but at the time it wasn't.
I got you. So when I first started, my favorite driver was Felipe Massa, who drove for Ferrari. He's no longer with the team. And since then, obviously, I probably am bandwagon for sure, Lewis Hamilton, but the guy is literally killing it. And his story, is one to really it's so inspiring to see how far he's come and what he's doing. And I mean, congrats to that team. They're doing massive, big things. So cool. So Kyle, back to you.
Yeah.
Because I could sit there and talk F1. So thankful that you're here. Grateful for you to be joining us on this ride today. And I always love to ask my co-pilots on the podcast what their origin story is into Web3. How did you dive into this rabbit hole to get here?
Yeah, so my story goes all the way back to when I was an intern in college. I was at in a startup kind of role in Omaha, and I was working in this office called Silicon Prairie News, which was like a startup news office for Omaha in the Midwest. And one of the founders there had actually bought Bitcoin back this is all the way in 2013. And he was just, talking about Bitcoin, and, I got interested in it, but I never bought any or anything like that. But it kind of planted the seeds. And then in 2015, I bought some Bitcoin on Coinbase and was interested in it, but I was never like a trader or a finance person.
Mm-hmm.
I just really kind of liked the concept of the technology. And then when I learned about Ethereum in 2016 and smart contracts and everything that it was supposed to enable, I was just instantly sucked into it. And the way I was learning about it, being in Omaha, I didn't have a meetup group I could go to or anything like that. So I was just spending a lot of time late at night on some subreddit and on Twitter, learning about this technology and trying to get as informed about it as I possibly could. And then, it I felt comfortable enough by April of 2017 to quit my job. And I just said, hey, I'm going to jump into this completely. I believe in this technology, regardless of crypto prices or whatever. And I'm going to jump in and try to build a company in this space. So I didn't really have a specific plan that I wanted to do, but I definitely was really interested in the technology and thought that it had a lot of legs and would, eventually be a place that I could build a company on.
That's incredible, and way to take a massive leap of faith to leave your job and go, okay, well, I know I want to do something in Web3. I know and there was probably not even terminology like Web3 back in 2017. I know there's a lot of new words and new things that have come out, more recently in the last few years. But just to be able to understand that, whoa, this blockchain technology is going to be super life-changing and such a huge paradigm shift from the current internet that we know today, Web 2, as we, are moving into that, and then saying, I'm going to build a company in this space. And that's what you did. So 2017, quit your job. So Pinata, was that even an idea on the table, or did it even
Nope.
start to manifest?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
No,
Tell
I
us
didn't.
about that.
So I was like all in on Ethereum and, like I said,
Okay.
smart contracts. I thought it was a
Yep.
very interesting thing that you could like automate, payouts and, everything that smart contracts do. Um, and so I didn't know what IPFS was or anything like that. The first thing I did was I actually contracted. I got on like Upwork or something like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I contracted with a software developer. I think they were out of Berlin at the time, and I was like, "Hey, can you just build me a simple?" They're called Raspberry Pis. They're two little small computers, and with Bluetooth communication, we had one Raspberry Pi in front of another, and then when the other one went in front of it, or so
Yeah.
A was in front of B or B was in front of A, however you wanted to put it, it would then do a payout, and it was actually running. It was running some, simple smart contracts and doing payouts based on the order of the computers. That was the first thing I did because I was just like, I'm not
Wow.
technical, right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
I basically need like little toys to kind of like play with this and kind of try to wrap my head around it. And then after that, I flew to a hackathon in New York because my underlying um, thought was I need to understand this technology much deeper than just reading about it on Twitter or Reddit. And so the best way to do that is to be around blockchain engineers and people that are in the space deeply. So I flew there since there was nobody in Omaha that I could really rely on, and was able to kind of build out a network and kept doing that. And eventually stumbling through a bunch of hackathons and different ideas that I had, was eventually able to land on Pinata, and we can kind of get into that story later.
Okay, well, I kind of want you to get in the story now, not
Now,
later.
yeah,
So, like,
I know. As I was
where
saying that, I was like, we're probably just going to keep going into it.
where
But
did Matt come in? So you're in
yeah,
New
so
York, you're at the hackathon, like somewhere along the line, Matt shows up in the picture, Germany's in the picture.
yeah,
Like, where are we at? Like, let's connect
yeah.
that.
So again, we being based in Omaha, there just wasn't a community around crypto and
Mm-hmm.
blockchain. And so for that summer of 2017, I just spent it flying around and going to these hackathons, and trying to like put me in the place of where something would happen.
Mm-hmm.
My idea was like, if I just show up, something will eventually happen. And I was able to meet a bunch of really interesting people and was able to network and do, really cool things in the space. However, I still live in Omaha and I was lonely and I was like, you know what? I need friends here so I don't have to travel all the time. And so I started the blockchain meetup group in town in
Okay.
2017. That grew to 400 or 500 people. It was
Oh,
actually
wow.
quite incredible how much interest
Yeah.
there was. And Matt was one of the first people to actually reach out to me. And Matt is a software engineer,
Okay.
um, by background, and reached out. He got drinks with me, and I was like, "Hey, you should come with me to these hackathons I'm going to because, um, you know, the space is incredibly vibrant, and like it's a real thing. It's not just
Yeah.
something you read about on the internet. There's a bunch of energy behind it,
Yes.
and people. And so I had him go with me to a hackathon called the ETH Waterloo in late 2017. And ETH Waterloo was actually the place where CryptoKitties launched.
Oh,
And
wow.
CryptoKitties is one of the first
Yeah.
NFTs ever launched, and became quite popular back in, I guess, late 2017, early 2018. It
Hmm.
actually at the time took down the Ethereum network, and was quite a moment. Um, and so, he came with me to that, and then I convinced him to quit his job and jump into
Kyle,
the
you're
space.
such a
Yeah,
bad influence.
I know. Um,
No, you're not. It
yeah,
was a joke.
no, and like at the time, like when we get deeper into the story, there were definitely questionable moments of if that was the right decision for him and for me. But we persisted and survived, and everything's a lot better now. But so quit his job, and what we did is we just started a blockchain consulting company. So Matt knew how to code, and I knew how to go out and call people and
Yeah.
ask if they needed help with blockchain applications. And so doing the blockchain consulting, and then still going to these hackathons. I'm going to say
Hmm.
hackathons a million times on this podcast, but it's a very core piece of the Pinata story, and
Hmm.
Matt and I's story. And so through that, going to these hackathons and blockchain consulting, what we figured out is that storing data on chain is really, really, really expensive. So if
Yeah.
you want to store just a gigabyte of data on Ethereum at the time, it would have cost $4 million. And your iPhone has like hundreds of gigabytes that it can store on it, or
Hmm.
terabytes even. And so it was just really expensive. And so what people were using to store data off chain was a protocol called IPFS, or the Interplanetary File System. And the reason they do that is because you can't really use traditional storage providers like clouds, or
Hmm.
traditional clouds as most people think of them, uh, because there's some security parameters that IPFS provide that traditional clouds don't. And so everybody was using IPFS, but it wasn't very fast, and it wasn't very stable at the time in 2018, summer of 2018. And so we were just like, hey, let's just make IPFS as fast and stable as possible. And that was the simple idea. And we ended up um, launching Pinata at the ETH Berlin hackathon in 2018, and ended up winning that hackathon.
Wow.
And we thought at the time when we won, that we were going to like take over the world and raise a bunch of money, and everything was going to be really, really easy after that. And that was not the case at all. We get back to the States, and we try to raise money. We're not really able to raise money. Nobody knows what we're doing. Nobody
Hmm.
knows even why we exist.
Hmm.
And there are a couple factors with that. One being it was quote unquote crypto winter in late 2018.
Yeah.
The space was kind of dying out a little bit, and then NFTs weren't a use case yet, and NFTs they existed, but the community of them was super small. You could probably call up every single person in the space at the time. And so we just didn't have a big market. Nobody actually really
Yeah.
needed to use us. And so we just struggled. And I always talk about it as, Matt and I knew we were right, but when you're right and you're early, it's the exact same thing as being wrong. And we just happened to survive long enough, and were resilient enough for over 2 years where we weren't making any money. I was living in my parents' basement trying to, just kind of survive.
Yeah.
And we were just trying to make money where we could. And eventually, though, NFTs started taking off, and when that happened, Pinata was able to take off with it, and grow quite significantly. So, but it was a tough 2 years there between winning the ETH Berlin hackathon and NFTs actually becoming something that anybody actually understood, because even all the way in 2019, early 2020, I have like pitch decks out there,
Yeah.
and we didn't talk about NFTs. We knew about them. I wrote my first blog about NFTs in 2017, but the VCs didn't know what
Right.
NFTs were. So
Right.
we just said gaming is like how we
Yeah.
kind of phrased it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was just a very, very different time period compared to today.
And we're still, I would say we are still very early on even with
Yes.
NFTs. So the magnitude that Pinata, and we'll get into like what it is so listeners understand what the technology is doing. But even the magnitude that Pinata can grow into in the next 5 years, 10 years, as the technology continues to continue to blow up.
Yeah.
And but kudos to you, like holy freaking cow, to like quit your job. Now your
Yeah.
co-founder has no job. Now you both are living like on top ramen and barely surviving.
Yep.
I'm sure there was moments at which you guys were, like hopefully there were moments in time where you guys were both kind of keeping each other, going despite it being such a winter period in your own personal lives, not just the entire crypto winter. But you've managed
Yeah.
to stick it out.
Yeah. For us, it was weird because like we were sitting there and we're like, and I'm sure many founders experience this, and a lot of companies fail. I think I've had like 5
Mhm.
failed companies at this point. So you're not always able to just ride it out and eventually be right. But
Yeah.
Matt and I were
Yeah.
were sitting there, and we we knew that like something like this was going to happen. And when I say something like this, we knew NFTs or some version of it was
Mhm.
going to happen. And we
Mhm.
knew they were going to need IPFS and ultimately need to use Pinata. But it's just when you're sitting there every day and the clock's kind of ticking and your bank account's going down and you're like, when is this day going to come?
Yeah.
And I spent every day just calling people and
Mhm.
calling people and calling people and trying to talk to them about like why they would or wouldn't use us,
Mhm.
and just trying to understand what they were working on. And so, it was one of those things of like compounding returns where it was like eventually enough people knew who we were, and as the space exploded, we were there at the early stages of it. If we hadn't spent those 2 years just surviving, and we like just started in 2020 or something like that,
Yeah.
I don't think we would be here today. We wouldn't have been able to, um, you know, make all of those connections and kind
Right.
of build our brand that we were doing at the time. And so, yeah, you had to put in the hard work, and again, just resiliency. If sometimes people ask me like, uh, what's a trait of a good entrepreneur, and now I just think it's resiliency. It's not like the
Mhm.
big idea or like any of this other stuff. It's
Yeah.
just you just got to survive, and it's difficult to do sometimes.
And another piece to that is just like moving through the mental gunk that kind of gets stuck in there. And
Oh yeah.
sometimes you could be spinning your wheels and, doing all that kind of stuff mentally. And so it's just kind of moving through that. And thankfully, you've had people in your life that probably have helped kind of get you to like the point where mentally you're able to like at least lean on people, when those times are tough. So,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Obviously I had Matt, and Matt had me, but then on
Mhm.
my on the personal side, she's now my wife, and at the time was just a girlfriend, but was
Yeah.
completely supportive. And then my parents were
Right.
also very, very supportive. But when you're like at the time I'm 26 or 27, living in your parents' basement, uh, it doesn't feel that cool or awesome.
Right.
And it's like I wasn't failing by any means, but it didn't feel great. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, kind of the mental aspects of that is kind of difficult as you put your business clothes on and go to the coffee shop to meet with somebody, and you just came from your parents' basement. That like weighs on you as you're taking that coffee meeting, right? But at the end, it was all worth it. So.
Totally. And you would do it all over again. I know
Yep,
it. I don't even know you that
100%.
well. I mean, we've only been speaking for the last 25 minutes or so, and I already can feel that about you. So with that, like tell us what Pinata is, how NFT creators or companies, businesses that are getting into the NFT space now, how are they utilizing Pinata? But first and foremost, what is it? And then how are they utilizing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are the home for NFT media, which means that we manage all of the files associated with NFTs. So
Mhm.
to kind of keep it simple, an NFT is a token that sits on a blockchain
Mhm.
and it is pointing at a file or image or whatever it is somewhere else. And
Mhm.
for the majority of NFTs, that somewhere else is IPFS. And then we just make it really fast, simple, easy for developers to use, but we also have non-technical tools as well. So non-technical people can upload content to us and attach them to NFTs. What we do is, whether you're uploading images or videos or audio files or pretty much any file type you can imagine, we make sure that you can distribute that at scale very fast and in a simple way.
Mhm.
One way I like to kind of explain it to people is like you couldn't sell a YouTube link as an NFT.
Right.
And but you still need like all of the capabilities of YouTube, which is like being able to stream video at, to potentially millions or billions of people,
Mhm.
making sure it's fast, making sure it's stable, like all of those types of things. All of these NFT projects need that. And that's ultimately what Pinata provides for the NFT projects is being able to distribute content at scale for the projects and make it simple and fast and all those kinds of things.
So when you talk about distributing content, you're talking about, so let's say I launch an NFT project. We're going to use this as an example on the Tezos blockchain. That's my
Yep.
favorite blockchain, by the way. On the Tezos blockchain, I launch an NFT project. And now I want the community in which the people that have bought my NFT project, let's say 5,000 people, I want them to be able to get access to the perks and the benefits and all of the content that is associated with that membership or that NFT that they're holding.
Yep.
I would use Pinata to have them, like, it's almost like the membership site is built on Pinata for them to kind of see all that content. Is
Yeah.
that, am I
So
understanding it
yep.
correctly?
Yep, whatever the
Okay.
content type might be. And what a lot of people don't realize is like if you're viewing content on some of these NFT marketplaces, you're probably viewing it from Pinata. So sometimes the NFT project themselves will have a direct relationship with us. They'll upload
Okay.
their content to us. And
Okay.
then if you're viewing it from the marketplace, or maybe it's in your wallet or wherever you're viewing it,
Yep.
it's most likely coming from us. We're serving and distributing the content to the end users. We have kind of other relationships, but that's normally how it works. So whether you're viewing it on the wallet, the marketplace, or you're on their website itself and looking at the NFT, whatever the NFT is, it's most likely actually coming from us, and ultimately it's on IPFS itself.
Okay. So you're saying like in viewing the actual piece of art
Content. Yep.
or like, so but a lot of these NFT projects, one of the big things that they'll do, especially to like create hype around the project, Twitter Spaces, YouTube, all those channels that you said. So when you're talking about them being able to like have that community access that material, are they having them go to one portal where they can see the videos, where they can see the tweets, where they can like read the posts and do all the social media engagement, like Web
Uh,
2 style in a Web 3 world?
Yeah, so what we've typically seen is, they use Twitter and Discord for the social aspects
Right.
of it.
Yeah.
And then especially with like private content now, and token gating, I'm not sure if you're
Mhm.
familiar with that term, but serving content based on whether or not you own the NFT has become
Yes.
a very common thing. And so we help people with that as well. So like NFT project will be like, hey, I'm going to give my token holders private content that only they can view. They'll
Hmm.
upload it to Pinata, and we will serve it based on whether or not they have the NFT itself. And so you'll get to see the content based on checking whether or not your wallet has it. And so, yeah, it's kind of like another way you can look at it is if you're thinking about maybe sharing content with Dropbox or sharing
Mm-hmm.
content, even like when you're sharing content on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's all this infrastructure and stuff that Instagram runs to ensure that you get access to that content.
Right.
We do the same thing. It's just in a Web3 paradigm for these NFT projects themselves.
Got it. So they have the ability to kind of create their own site, so to speak,
Yep,
like utilizing Pinata software.
absolutely.
So then my community of my NFT holders, let's say I have of the 5,000, 2,500 are founding members. So they get exclusive content that they have access to. Again, like you said, based on whatever is in their wallet, their particular
Right.
holding. And then the other 2,500 maybe, get so many features, but not all of the content. And
Right.
that's built on your back end, but my front end information would show to them.
Yep.
Like, got it.
Yep. And the one thing that like we're really, really big on, and we went out and interviewed a bunch of people in the space, and what we realized is, if we're going to do this NFT thing where the creator of the content, the NFT project themselves, um, they don't want anybody else's brand to be in front of theirs, right? So the NFT project itself wants their name to be out in front,
Yeah.
and they don't want it hidden behind a platform. So they don't want it hidden behind YouTube or Instagram or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. They want their name out front. They want to interact directly with their community,
Right.
and have a lot more kind of agency or control over that experience for their token holders.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is actually really cool about the Web3 space and NFTs in general is people have a lot more agency over their projects and how they serve content and what type of content they
Yeah.
serve. There's little things like, Instagram, if you think about Instagram, all the photos have to be a square, right?
Right.
Or at least initially. Now it's
Right.
a little bit beyond that. But with NFTs and with Pinata, the opportunities are endless, and the file formats and the way it looks and all of that kind of stuff is pretty endless. And what's cool is people are kind of building their own playbooks of what's successful and what's not. And creativity is, I think, being rewarded in this space much more than it was in Web 2.
Absolutely. Plus, I mean, not only that, the creativity, but the community that they can build on their own and not have fear of being deplatformed or,
Yep.
things happening, like you said, their brand being put out there by YouTube or being hidden behind the
Yep.
Instagram windows. There's all of that. You mentioned token gating, and just because some of my listener base, these are a lot of crypto curious people, like learning a
Yeah.
lot about NFTs, learning about crypto, blockchain technology. So essentially what Kyle is saying there with token gating is, think of it, and this analogy may not be the best, but just think of it like your Starbucks rewards program. So you have the gold card at Starbucks and you get X amount of stars for every coffee purchase you make. Well, if you're just a basic Starbucks, goer, you don't get all the perks that people with the gold card or with the gold star status get, where they get the free drinks on their birthdays and all of that. So essentially that's what token gating is in Web3. Maybe Kyle, if you have a different analogy you'd like to use, but that's just kind of, it's almost like you get the privilege of entering an extra layer or get like a privilege into a special club, so to speak, in the Web3 world.
Yeah. I think that's a great analogy. And one other one I use is, with any of these Web 2 platforms, all of your access is based on whether or not you have an account with them. So you
Mm-hmm.
have a YouTube account, you have an Instagram account, you have whatever account. And with NFTs, instead of needing to have that account with that platform, it's saying, hey, you just need to have this NFT, and then that gives you access to whatever it is.
Right.
And so it allows individual creators to kind of have the power of permissioning. They get to permission however they want, based on NFTs, and it's a very like easy thing to do. And I think that's again another exciting thing is you're giving people, smaller projects, smaller entities, the power that these large platforms used to provide, and now you have the ability to customize it and do whatever you want with it.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, so kind of shifting gears a little bit, and just to kind of like set in some of these ideas. So you talk about, what Pinata is doing in terms of being able to content share with an NFT project. Now, if I built my NFT project on Tezos and I have the smart contract on Tezos, that IPFS address would be pointing towards a Pinata a web address or like a Pinata, something on the back end, right?
Yep.
Am I understanding that correctly?
So this is kind of where IPFS gets cool. So
Yeah.
with IPFS, the way it works is it's a content addressable file system. So
Yeah.
I won't go too deep into that, but essentially, IPFS names files based on the file itself instead of where it's stored. And so you can kind of think of it like the old way to store files, like the Web 2 way, is if I live in, Omaha, Nebraska, I would be Kyle Omaha. And
Mm-hmm.
when I travel to New York, I then all of a sudden become Kyle New York, and my
Mm-hmm.
name changes when I travel. What
Mm-hmm.
IPFS does is it gives each file a unique identifier, a unique ID, that only that file can have. So I am only Kyle Tut, and when I'm in Omaha, I'm Kyle Tut, and when I'm in New York, I'm Kyle Tut, and it doesn't matter. And so that's what IPFS does. It gives this identifier to the file. And so what you do is you put that identifier in your NFT on Tezos,
Mm-hmm.
and it just points to that content. And that content could be on Pinata, and a lot of people use Pinata because, again, we're fast and stable, but it could also be on another IPFS node somewhere else. So there's a bunch of IPFS nodes out there that you could pull this content from and
Mm-hmm.
get access to it.
Very cool. Very cool. So you guys aren't necessarily in charge of like the whole minting process. The minting process would like happen, people buy their NFTs on like for like Tezos. I mean, what the secondary market a lot of people use on Tezos is called object.com.
Yep.
And so they would buy their NFTs on object, and then basically be able to have everything kind of point to Pinata for the content,
Yep.
all of the perks, all of the benefits, the utility for that NFT would basically be housed on Pinata.
Yep. And
Cool.
with Pinata, we don't mint. So
Right. I got it.
we only manage kind of the content associated with
Cool.
NFTs. And what that's enabled us to do is we get a very broad view into the space. So
Mm-hmm.
we have plenty of users on Pinata are on in the Tezos ecosystem. We
Mm-hmm.
have Ethereum and Solana, and
Yep.
name a blockchain somebody
Right.
has probably built with it and used us to do it. And the other thing is we let people kind of experiment with what their NFTs are capable of on chain,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't mint ourselves, and so again we get a pretty broad view into the space, and it's pretty incredible all of the experimentation that we're seeing with our users and how they're building NFTs and what they're doing with them.
That's great. That's so awesome. Okay. Question. Um, Decentralization. So Pinata sound like, of course, NFTs, blockchain technology, the whole idea around it is decentralization, like not having something in a centralized location that can be destroyed by an act of God or the government or like all these
Yep.
things that we have information all over the place. With Pinata, like there some sort of centralization there that it's kind of playing in a decentralized world. It's bringing
Yep.
everything together, but yeah, how do you like overcome that to where it's
Yeah.
not 100% centralized?
Yeah. So we are, we're like a centralized company built on a decentralized protocol,
Got
and
it.
so there's certainly amounts of centralization that we're doing on top of IPFS. The one thing that we always kind of talk about with IPFS is it can be as decentralized or centralized as you want to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And if people want to build resiliency. They can replicate nodes, IPFS nodes themselves, or use other providers. And as long as they have those IDs, they can grab the content from Pinata or another, we're technically called an IPFS pinning service, another IPFS pinning service, or they can run it themselves. And so it's really kind of up to the individual projects of how centralized or decentralized they want it to be. But at the end of the day, we are a centralized company running on a decentralized protocol.
Okay, cool. So then to kind of cement this in a little bit in my own mind, and I'm learning so much from you, Kyle, so thank you for this, is then basically because you guys don't handle the mint and I handle the mint on the back end with Tezos, and Tezos is a decentralized blockchain, then if Pinata, God forbid, something happened or you and Matt decide, you know what, we're going to the Bahamas, screw this project, we're not doing anything anymore, I'm leaving Omaha, Nebraska for good. It doesn't mess up the actual project in and of itself. It would just kind of essentially like no more content delivery network.
So it just this actually happened in the Tezos ecosystem. There was I think it was on Pen, or I'm forgetting the marketplace, but the marketplace developer kind of just was like, hey, I'm out, I'm not going to support this anymore. And so all of the NFT creators were like, well, what's going to happen to my content? It was on IPFS, but it wasn't on Pinata. And so what we were able to do is come in and actually replicate all of that content, because we could just grab those content identifiers, replicate all the content, and ensure that the content stayed up and it didn't disappear or anything like that. And so again, what's cool about IPFS is you can somebody can be in charge of it or responsible for it, but it's very easy to allow other people to be in charge and responsible for it. So when like bad situations like the one we just talked about happened, we were actually able to save all of that content, and people were able to take responsibility for it and have more ownership and autonomy over the content, where you couldn't do that in a Web 2 kind of paradigm or a Web 2 world. So yeah, it's a really flexible kind of protocol that we have a lot of fun with. We think it's really cool. Obviously there's there's things that go wrong, but there's also plenty of opportunity with it.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And that's really just, it's comforting to hear that you guys can do that. Like if God, well, I don't know if it's God forbid necessarily, but if Facebook went down, all of those memories you've posted for the last 2 decades of your life and all those pictures, it's like whoosh, vanished. There isn't a technology system that would be able to take all of that information and put it, like you talked about with Pinata, like moving, like some Web3 like company or guy decides he doesn't want to run the marketplace anymore, and now you can take the data and move it. So that very, very cool. I'm very excited to see how Pinata continues to do amazing things in the space. And when I get an NFT project launched, I'll be pointing things in your guys' direction.
Great. Yeah, we would love to help you.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to hit on? I obviously want my listeners to be able to follow you, connect with you, those type of things, but anything additional to that I didn't ask?
No, I think we covered it all. And yeah, if they want to reach out or follow our story, obviously you can find us on pinata.cloud. And then I'm Kyle Tut, KYLETUT, on any of the platforms anywhere you'll find me. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kyle. Thank you so much for being here. And for those of you who are on this ride and have taken this journey through this space with me multiple times, you know the drill. As we pull this train into the station, make sure you grab all your belongings and exit to the right, and we will see you on the next one.
You made it. Congratulations. That wasn't so bad, was it? I hope you laughed and learned a little bit more about this Web3 universe and how simple and fun it can really be. Would you be so kind as to leave us a review and share it with your friends and family? It would mean so much to get this out to more people as we embark on the greatest transfer of wealth that has ever happened in human history. Can't wait to see you on the next one.